Hey guys, we have an awesome special guest this evening. The showrunner of Bull is in the house. Stay right with us.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Hey everyone,
Hey.
welcome to Bull After Show. We have an awesome special guest this evening. He has been a part of many writers' rooms, from The West Wing to Sleepy Hollow, Law & Order SVU. He is the current showrunner of our beloved show, Bull on CBS. He is Mark Goffman.
Yay!
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
Oh, we are so excited to have you here. We love this. We love this show, and we just really want to get all the insider
Very kind.
secrets and scoops from you, which hopefully we will get.
I'll give a few.
Yeah, just a few? Okay. All right.
It is great having you.
Yeah.
Seriously, like this is so cool for us. I'm Kevin Ellis.
Yeah. And I'm Nadine Della-Pelle. You can find me everywhere at Nadine DP and the number 3.
And the Kevin Ellis on Twitter, Instagram, Kevin Ellis 25. Mark, you have social media.
Sure. Mark Goffman on Twitter.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
There we go.
That's the main way to reach me.
See, I love that. See, I don't know why I had to put the 3 at the end, because my last name is way too long. Just have Nadine Della-Pelle, so I had to shorten it. But I wish it was just easy. I'm gonna just do Mark Goffman from now on too.
Fine.
So everyone to follow me at Mark Goffman.
We look similar.
Just a little bit. Where are my glasses?
It's classy. It's classy.
Yeah.
So I mean, like this show so great, and it is very successful. It is the #1 drama on television, #1 new show in all of television. It is fantastic, and I mean, right off the bat, I want to know, how did you become involved in the show, and what drew you to Bull?
Well, you know, Paul Addonasio and Dr. Phil McGraw actually created the show, and two people I really, really admire. Paul Addonasio, of course, wrote Quiz Show and Donnie Brasco, and was one of the executive producers of House. I mean, just has an incredible pedigree as a writer and producer. And Dr. Phil was really this pioneer in trial science, and I had no idea. I didn't know him anything other than, you know, Dr. Phil and his talk show, and he started telling us stories, and they're really mind-blowing. I mean, the whole way that he ended up getting a talk show was from Oprah. And if you remember, in the 90s, she was sued because she said something to the effect of "don't eat beef," and it was during the mad cow scare, and the beef industry sued her for, and I think for like hundreds of millions of dollars. And Dr. Phil was hired as a trial scientist to work with her, help pick her jury, help prep her for trial.
Oh, wow.
And she was so impressed with him that she then started having him on her show.
No
and
way.
it all kind of, you know, spurred from there. But he was incredibly successful as this, I mean, huge, you know, he had done major celebrities and billion-dollar cases. And I have come to think about our judicial system in such a different way, and that's really what hooked me into the show. Is, you know, in thinking about it, there were just some brilliant television this year with like the O.J. story, and I loved the way that sort of peeled back the curtain on something I thought I was pretty familiar with, and really showed how the judicial system worked, how every player in the trial came up with their strategies, played it against the jury, played it in court. And so when this show was offered to me, I thought, what an amazing opportunity to really look at justice in America, with this character of Bull at the helm. And Michael Weatherly is so great because you can kind of do anything with him, and he's so likable that you can get away with it.
Yeah.
And that was,
He just does a little smile,
Yeah.
and then he's just good, and it's good to go.
so like in the pilot episode, you know, whether it's stealing a watch or saying something incredibly provocative, and I love sort of having a main character who's a provocateur. His whole kind of ethos is about what makes people tick. And so that was the other thing that really attracted me to the show, is we're not just doing a law show, we're not just doing a crime show, we're doing a show about human behavior. We're really we're at the center is a person who's trying to understand what makes people tick, because what makes himself tick. And that's just a really exciting place as a writer to start. And, you know, that allows us the ability to do anything from a heavy crime murder case to, you know, really interesting litigation cases, to sexual discrimination, you know, across the board, because it's all about how do people think about each other, how do they behave, and what 12 people are you going to put together to come up with, a verdict that we want for the outcome. Yeah. So there's a little bit of wish fulfillment in the episodes, and that, like when I was on The West Wing, I love the idea that we can kind of, say something new and refreshing, also look at, a major part of American culture within our legal structure.
Yeah, that's great. And the trial science that you guys use on the show, how closely related is that to the actual trial science that happens today? Or in comparison to, you're talking about Dr. Phil in the past, and we see on Bull, we see all these monitors and cable going crazy with the hacking on social media platforms. So it must have obviously been a lot different for Dr. Phil to do that in the past. But is it really as realistic today, though, of what you guys are portraying on the show?
So we have a very advanced trial science on our show, but it's not wholly unrealistic, and especially on the, when you think about, 12 people in some town are going to decide $1 billion or $2 billion decision. People are interested in who those 12 people are.
Yeah.
And, even back in the day, Dr. Phil would tell us stories about surveillance on these 12 people, how he would go into a town and they would hire people to be waitresses or part of a catering company or part of different, businesses, so that they would hear what's going on in the town.
Wow.
Oh,
how
gotcha.
people are talking about it, and have an understanding of the jury and the jurors. So that's not unrealistic at all. The social media aspect they didn't have back in the 90s when he was doing this, but we've just extrapolated, and it's incredible how much of a digital footprint everybody leaves. And so there's a way to do some of it without any hacking. On our show, we kind of feel like, because what we're trying to do is tip the scales of justice back to even, and a lot of time we're dealing with, we are the underdog taking on somebody who's got overwhelming force. We take a little liberties and maybe do a little hacking for good.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you guys you do a lot of research with all types of cases that go on across the country. What would you say is probably one of the more outlandish story pitches that you guys have seen after reading some of this research?
God, it's incredible. There's so much that's beyond what we could make up. But the idea in last week's episode about two jurors hooking up and having sex and having this whole relationship, that apparently is not uncommon.
Is it so?
Especially in longer trials. And it'll happen, and then, when you're somebody like us, you need a mirror jury, so trying to figure out how to get
those two people to have that
our
relationship.
friends to have the same relationship as the jurors, or conversely, people who hate each other on the jury.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, it's incredible. The other thing that I've seen that I just thought was amazing was Dr. Phil showed us kind of before and afters of almost like these makeovers that people would have before they go on the witness stand. And there was actually, there was a guy who, people look so shifty when they don't know and when they're nervous. And there was this guy who just kept scratching himself everywhere and kept drinking water. And just looked so guilty in the first time. And then they showed us the after, and this is after about a week of trial prep, and he looked calm and composed.
After a chunk
and amazing.
dealt with him,
and it was really incredible seeing, my God, if he hadn't gone through that witness prep, he just would have tanked the whole case.
Now, was Chunk a completely fictional character, or did Dr. Phil have somebody like him, an individual who did?
As far as I know, Chunk is a one of a kind.
Okay.
He is. He's great.
We love Chunk.
Yeah, and
he's great. I don't know if you guys saw Hamilton, but he was George Washington in Hamilton, and mind-blowing in that, and we're so lucky to have him on the show.
Yeah, and speaking of
big things coming for his character.
Yeah, the entire ensemble that you guys have put together is just an array of characters with personalities, and we always talk about how much we love knowing the backgrounds to these characters. Whenever we can get a little bit more into it, especially last episode seeing Bull and his ex-wife and everything that happened with Benny, and I just love that more personal side to everyone, which is really great. But yeah, we really want to know, is there going to be any more personal stories when it comes to Cable or to Chunk or Danny, and
There's one for each of them. In fact,
there is. Okay.
I was working in post-production on 2 episodes today, One of them has a fairly big cable element to it, which is really fun. She's the only person in a certain part of TAC for the entire episode, and has to do a lot of stuff herself.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then
exciting. She loves
I
cable.
love cable. I think
Cable,
cable is so great.
we also, the next episode to air, not tonight's, but the first one back in January, is about a self-driving car.
Oh, that's awesome.
And Cable has a connection with the inventor of this self-driving car, and they go to a hacker, cafe, and there's a lot of stuff that Cable gets to do in that episode.
That's fantastic, because I've been even talking recently, especially with my roommate, we've been talking about how self-driving cars and just the drones, the advancement of technology has just created all of these different legal problems in the future, like all of these regulations and whatnot, and it just adds this completely different element, and I'm sure it adds a whole realm of creative possibilities for the show.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, well, there's a few different ways that we can slice it, which are really fun. And one is like just looking at where the intersection of technology and law is, and it's so murky because we are writing the rules. There's nothing in place now for so many of these new technologies, whether it's like CRISPR, and gene splicing, or something like self-driving cars. But the other thing that's fun for our show is, generally speaking, juries can't understand any of the technology. They get lost in the technobabble. So, like, we get to play with, well, do we want a jury full of technophiles or technophobes, or do you want them of grandmothers, or do you want them with like young hipsters, and trying to get that mix. And so in this episode, that was part of like the exploration. And as it turns out, Benny is a technophobe.
Oh,
and
really?
we'll get to learn a lot more about that in the next episode and see where that comes from.
Yeah. So how much prepping do you guys have to do for a show like this? Like, were you really well versed with law before coming onto it? Did you really know a lot how the system works, or was it sort of, is it still a learning type of experience for you?
I mean, one of the things I like, or I love really about being a television writer is every episode you get to delve into a new world. And every show you get to delve into a new set of characters and, a new almost career to explore, whether it's, in crime or law. This show has both, and then psychology. God, there's so much psychology that I'm researching now.
Yeah.
But how I initially got involved in all this is kind of an unusual path. I lived abroad for a couple of years, and then I decided to go to the Kennedy School of Government, which is the Harvard School of Government, and get a master's. And I wanted to go into speechwriting. That was my dream, was to be a speechwriter. And so after I graduated, I wrote a short story just because I also liked writing fiction. And I sent it to my brother, who was like the only person reading fiction. And he happened to be dating a woman who was an assistant at a talent agency. And he left this short story out that I wrote on his nightstand, and she read it and sent it to an agent that she knew in LA. She was in New York. And that agent sent it to a producer, and I got flown. It was like, I still remember, it was 0 degrees in Boston in January. And this producer flew me out to LA, and it was like 70 degrees. I met at her home in the Pacific Palisades, and I was like, wait a minute, like, life can be like this?
Yeah, right?
And I can make things up. I don't have to stick to like reality to write. And so, I ended up, taking the leap and moved out here. And I still did speech writing on the side for a few years after that. But I had this one movie that got optioned, and like many movies, it didn't go anywhere, but I got an agent out of it.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then, it's funny, then I started doing some speech writing for the State Department, and I had just gotten clearance to have a speech writing job, for a pretty high-level speech writing job for them, when I got offered a job writing on the West Wing.
There you go.
Amazing.
And, it was just before the Iraq War, and I thought I could actually be more truthful writing in this fictitious White House than I could be
in the regular White House. What's happening?
So I decided to stay out here and roll the dice, and I went on to the West Wing and kind of haven't looked back.
Yeah, that's
Irony.
great. Now, is your brother still dating that woman?
No.
No, okay. All right. Well, thank you, because without her, we wouldn't have you on the show. That is such an awesome story, how things just happen like that. You
Yeah,
just
it's
connect
just
the
funny.
dots and see where it all leads you to. Wow, that's
Of
really
all
great.
of your past writing staff experiences, which one do you think is probably the most influential in helping you run Bull?
Well, writing on the West Wing, I think just generally is my most influential because it was my first real staff job. Writing under Sorkin was just a dream. And I got to write on him for 3 years and then John Wells for 2. So I kind of really got to know 2 amazing giants and incredible sort of mentors in television and in the field of writing. So they both left, an imprint on me and helped me think about how I want to run a show and the kinds of things that I like writing about. There's so many lessons from Aaron about writing that I think about every day. Just the simplest of, he really pounded it into us, this idea that Aristotle had about intention and obstacle. Every scene has to have, characters need to have a strong want, and there has to be something even stronger in their way, and just
Wow.
that's the basis for every scene and everything that when I start writing.
Wow, what a mentor to have. Wow, that's a great, experience for the rest of your life. Yeah.
He was really terrific. I loved working with him. I got to work with him on that and consult on Charlie Wilson's War, and then got to run the writer's room on Studio 60.
I love it.
So
Fantastic.
really, really, I think the world of him.
Yeah.
He's just I felt sort of like Salieri getting to see Mozart there.
There you
amazing.
go. And he's a Syracuse grad.
That's right.
Which I am as
course.
well. Go
Yes, she is.
Qs, go Orange. Love that. You can't hate on that.
I can't
And
hate.
for everyone who's watching who doesn't really know what a showrunner does per se, I know it's very hard to be like, so what do you do every day? Because I work in television. I understand that it's a craziness. But if you can kind of, I don't know,
Sure.
in short terms say what exactly your role is with the show.
I'll give a longer version.
Give longer, whatever is good for you. I love
because
long.
I think
so.
that the history of how show running came about in television is really interesting. So writers initially in movies were not treated that well and had very little power. So when television came along, the writers and the Writers Guild said, this is a medium that we're going to make our own. So they built into all the guild contracts that the writers become producers after a certain amount of time. And what that kind of became is like an up-or-out system on writing staffs, where you start as a staff writer, then you become a story editor, then executive story editor, and you move up, and then producer, supervising producer, and then each of those you get more managerial experience. And John Wells was kind of the best at this. And at times he had 4 shows on the air.
Ugh,
Which is just incredible. But he was really good at also grooming all the people who worked under him. He hired people with the philosophy of this is kind of a sink or swim place, but if you're good, I'm going to train you to one day be a showrunner. And he taught us everything from not just thinking about what's on the page, but how to produce, which is incredibly important, and how to work with actors and hire directors and everything. And so by the time you get to executive producer, unlike movies where the directors and the producers and the actors have the majority of the power and control, in television the writers do. A showrunner is almost like a CEO. We do all the hiring, we do all the firing, we decide what directors are going to direct each week. We get to hire the cast, we produce the episodes, and have all the sort of final decision making with the network. So it really is the last stop in setting the vision and everything from overall tone to doing the polishes on the script to helping decide what people are going to wear every day on the show.
You wear 1,000 hats. You really do.
And the key is hiring well.
Yeah. Well, do you hire the extras that are in the background in the jury? Because I know 2 people who would maybe want to be an extra.
You guys want to be in the jury?
We could.
Awesome.
Yeah,
All right.
you already did where, the 2 people like each other and hook up. So we're already past that. We don't need that. So I would be willing to do it with him now. I'm just kidding. But no, that's great. I mean, yeah, it's just, are you loving this experience too?
Yeah.
I mean, you're probably on
It's
zero
really
sleep
fun.
or maybe 1 hour.
It's hard.
Or...
I mean, the hardest part is a first-year show because nothing's really set, and everyone has a different idea of what the show is, only because really, you haven't yet created what it is. And you're hiring up to 500 people who are all going to, within about a 6-week period, who all need to be swimming in the same direction, who need to have that shared vision of what the show is. We write it in LA, we shoot it in New York, and then we do post back in LA. So across country, we have to communicate with the creatives and the actors there, and set dressing and pick locations and everything across country. And like I said, we start shooting about 6 or 7 weeks after we staff the writer's room. And so that means building all the sets, hiring those several hundred people, getting the cast together, and then starting to write the scripts. And you're not just writing one script. Like the first script, the pilot script, you get roughly 9 months to make. Now you have 6 weeks, and then you're going to make 22.
And hopefully it's as good as the
every,
pilot.
Every 8 days is going to be a new one come, hell or high water. So you're just on this treadmill.
Seriously.
And you cannot stop running, ever.
And as things are moving so quick, I'm sure that a lot of your personal experiences find their way into the show because that's what you have to pull from. So how much of the show finds these personal experiences of Mark Goffman?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I really like to, hire incredibly talented writers and have them share their collective experiences too, so that's what gives the show its richness. And, my job is to help both foster that talent and, give a direction for what the show and setting that tone, but then allowing everybody to really put their stamp on their episodes. But there's definitely, lots of little pieces of me that I'll throw in. There's a story from the doctor episode a few weeks ago, where it's a story he tells of the day he fell for Marissa, which is based on the day I fell for my wife, where I was wearing this horrible NASA tank top or like jersey and corduroy shorts and work boots, and I never thought about what I wore before then, but apparently it makes a difference to women.
It makes a difference. They remember that.
So fortunately, she stuck with me.
Did she love that you incorporated that?
Oh yeah, I called her over. I was like, "Honey, watch this part."
Doesn't care about the rest. This one's about me. And then you were saying tonight's episode, there was also a little something you threw in as well.
Yeah, there was a story I heard right before I got married that a rabbi told about gossip and about the power of gossip and the negative power of gossip. And I thought it was incredibly powerful. And so we were able to work it into the episode tonight. And I thought it was really funny because obviously, Bull is not Jewish, but he uses the word shtetl in the episode. So he has to explain that. But, he's well-read. So.
Yeah, very well-read.
I mean, with all of the stellar ratings, viewership, apart from those elements, what are you most proud of about this show's success?
What I'm really most proud of is we're getting to sort of pull back the veil on the American judicial system and inspire some hope within it that you can get a fair trial and maybe, show people a little bit about human behavior. And that's fun. And every episode we really try to find a few little kernels of things about human behavior that I didn't know and that are insightful and enlightening and hopefully a little inspiring.
It's really cool.
Oh, yeah. And how closely related is Bull, because I know we're talking about fiction and whatnot, is Bull to Dr. Phil, from how Dr. Phil was back in the day when he was really doing this?
We were very clear that we didn't want to make it Dr. Phil.
Okay.
We wanted the trial science and sort of the corporate approach to be based on his research, but the character is not him. And really, because we wanted to just have the freedom to let him get into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and not have to be like...
And, and Michael Weatherly is just amazing. And there are definitely aspects. And there are sayings that, Dr. Phil has and approaches, that he'll give. Like, he talks about, outfaring the other side, where, he will show in court how his client and his strategy just is so much more common sense, fair, for everyone, that it'll often have an effect on the juries.
Noble approach.
Yeah, he talks about plaintiffing the defense, which I think is kind of an awesome idea. And it's really like, if you're the defense, to go on the offense. And that's a really cool, it's a great way to get active in a show.
Yeah.
And the one thing that the two of us have talked about a lot about the show is we see Bull win a lot. Yes. And we're so interested to see what his character would be like if he lost.
Is he gonna lose? Is Bull gonna lose?
All right, so first of all, Callisto,
Yes.
which is actually based on a real town in Texas. That was definitely a Dr. Phil story.
Oh, really? Okay.
I mean, not exactly like that, but we created it as it was Bull, one of the only places Bull had lost.
Yeah.
To Diana Lindsay, who's going to be coming back in an episode.
Really? Okay.
Unfortunately, or I guess fortunately for her, she's a regular on night shift, so we can't get her all the time.
Schedules.
Unfortunately for us, but yeah.
But yeah, so he has lost before. We're going to see a lot more of really challenging, difficult episodes and cases. And he's not always going to win in the future.
He isn't, okay, because we were wondering that, because Callisto is really, it did not end with a win or a loss. So it was kind of, we're like, is that it?
Was a tie.
Was that stalemate kind of his loss, I guess, in a sense? Him waking up, with his pants off by a cow? I guess that was just a loss, not even having to go to court.
Everybody loses in that situation.
You're always a loser in that, but Bull somehow rose out of it. But yeah, that's really, so is Bull going to get married this season again?
Get married this season.
Yeah.
Or can we at least expect a little bit of rekindling with his ex?
There's definitely going to be some romance this season. There's a lot coming up, but I wouldn't say marriage is in the horizon.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Not yet. We still have a lot more.
We'll see.
I can say this. I don't know if it's been announced anywhere else, but we're doing 23 episodes now.
23 episodes.
We got our back one.
Ooh.
So yeah.
That's
we're
so
gonna do
exciting.
The extra episodes, fantastic.
That is huge news. That's just showing how great the show is doing and how successful it is.
The back order alone was just a great a testament to your success, and it's been a real fantastic.
And you guys are in the embryo phase still, like you're saying. You guys are still working on it and still figuring out, doing New York to LA, figuring out how it's all going. So. And a lot of shows don't really get even a season 1. So props to you guys for even making it this far.
I was talking with a writer on The Simpsons, and he was sort of explaining how, he likes to think of episodes as years in a person's life. So, like, the first season of a show, those first 13 are very awkward. You're still, learning how to walk, basically. Then in season 2, you're like 22 to 40, you feel invincible, and everything's new, and you're running full speed. And he's like, yeah, we're doing 350. I'm so old. I'm barely just kind of
just making it happen. That's a great analogy to have to describe it. Do you have
one final question for me? I know that we had touched upon it earlier in that we want to see a little bit more of the supporting characters in TAC. If you could choose, I know it's preliminary, but if you could choose any supporting character to have their own spin-off series, what would you like to roll with?
Oh, man.
Ooh.
I know it's a tough one.
See, that's not fair. Can't I just take all of them?
I'm not judging any of the actors. I'm not judging anything, but just the character itself. I know that's a tough question.
Yeah.
Well, see, it's not.
But if you can take all of them,
I would do that. But there's
answer.
no question, Chunk has a lot of potential. So.
Yeah.
But the fun thing about this show is each of them has a different skill set, and in the next, as we get into these later season episodes, we're going to be doing a lot more with each of them. So it's going to be going to be really exciting.
Yeah, and I just have one more final question that
We will
I've
meet
always...
Cable's X is coming up too.
Cable's X. Oh, okay. Oh, I like knowing a little bit more
Love
about
it.
my girl. We just, I'm a hacker at heart, not really at all. But if I was, I would be Cable.
Okay.
But something that I always bring up whenever we do after shows is we always see people walking around in the backgrounds, which are obviously extras.
Yeah.
But I've always been curious: is Bull working on many cases at once, and we're just seeing one?
Yeah.
Or are these just 1,000 interns that are just helping them prep for this case?
There are probably never more than 2 or 3 cases at once,
Okay.
because he's just, he's all or nothing on a case. But, if you think about it, most legal cases don't happen overnight. They take years,
Yeah.
and certainly months to, kind of come to gestation. So there's some percolating in the background.
Yeah. But the team that he's with, they're on every
Yeah.
case that he's on.
He has
So
this
his little
team,
group.
he has this little group, and then there's probably 50 other people who are working in the
Support.
background. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Because how many times have I asked about that? I don't
almost
know why.
every episode. It's
always
great.
looking, and he's just the
We're
intern.
gonna get to know some of them too, though.
Okay,
There's a
good.
couple of them that are
Good.
gonna pop out in the next.
I love this.
in the next
Oh,
few
it
episodes.
makes me so happy. Like I'm just smiling. I can't stop smiling thinking. I love this show so much.
A lot of
thank
insider
you.
knowledge. You've
Yeah.
provided a great
Thank
insight and a great background on your history as
Yeah.
an individual.
Yeah.
Very successful,
Well,
and we see the success in this show.
In the show.
Yeah, well,
shows.
thanks so much for watching.
Yeah, and thank you so much for coming
enjoy.
on. This has been so
course.
great, so insightful, and we can't wait for the new year and the rest of the episodes to come out. So everyone keep tuned to it. It's a fabulous show, as we all know, as we always talk about together.
We've got about like 12, 13 more episodes to air, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
very exciting. Well, Nadine, tell
Yeah.
us where you can find you on
Thank you
social
guys
media.
for watching. You guys can find me everywhere at Nadine, DP, and the number 3.
And I am Kevin Ellis. You can find me on Twitter at @TheKevinEllis or Instagram at KevinEllis25. We thank Mark Goffman again for
you,
joining
Mark.
us this evening. We will be back after the new year with a
the
new
new year.
episode of Bull. Nice seeing you guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Bull you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.